Hello and welcome. So we've seen the release of Top Gun Maverick and the Top Gun Maverick DLC for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So in this video it will not be a review of that DLC, although I plan on doing one at some stage. This is actually just a quick tutorial on how to get the aircraft started, taxied and up in the air and getting it on hypersonic. So yeah, made a couple of amendments to the actual challenge which you can do, and I've also made some tiny amendments to the Dipsy Doodle maneuver that's going to be performed in this video. So yeah, it's just a rudimentary basic sort of way of getting it through Mach 1 and then into hypersonic. So let's get into the cockpit and get the thing started. So this is the Darkstar in all its beauty, I guess. Although in the movie it wasn't actually known as the Darkstar, it wasn't actually called anything as far as I can recollect. It was only known by its call sign. Maverick's call sign was Darkstar, but I guess that name will stick now as it's been known as that for quite a while. Anyway, let's jump in the cockpit and get the thing started. So first off, a quick cockpit familiarisation. These are the throttles, obviously. Then we've got gear handle here, gear indicator lights, parking brake, emergency gear extension, landing light. This isn't operative, nor is that, nor is that. These are the engine resets for 1 and 2. We've got the 1 and 2 generators. This is the scramjet screen, scramjet igniter. Here we have our EFI page. Up here we have our brightness knobs for the screens, Mach indicator. Up here we have comms, nav and transponder screen. Over here, majority of this stuff isn't operable. This gauge is, but these aren't. Down here we've got the battery switch, fuel cell switches, and then the battery and fuel cell temperature screen. Over here, inoperative indicator screen there, engine starters, APU start, APU stop, trim reset, yaw trim, defog. None of these are operable, neither is that. Nav lights and beacon upper and lower. And then behind the flight column we've got our engine gauges, so we've got RPM, temperatures, things like that nature. That's it for the familiarization. So battery on. And then we want nav lights on. I like to switch the screens to night, don't like them too bright. The warning panel with red lights letting us know that the engines are not online, so let's start the APU, wait for the ready light to glow. There we go. Now we can start the engine, so left click, hold up and get that cranked. Okay, and now the lights are going through their different stages and then they'll extinguish when they're up and running. There we go. Now just wait for the RPMs to settle. Come over here, switch on the left generator, and as you can see it's on the screen there. Now for the right hand side, on. Again, the lights will go through their different stages and they extinguish. There we go. And they're out. Just wait for the RPMs to settle. And now right generator on. He's on the screen there. Turn the APU off and wait for that to show us off. So let's have a look at the EFI. We've got our front view there on the camera with our artificial horizon, fuel tanks and our engine gauges, our downward viewing camera, our HSI. This is our altitude, this is our speed, ground speed and true airspeed. Page 2 shows all the fuel cells and fuel tanks and pumps, another ADI and a copy of the fuel page there, and page 3 is the Dipsy Doodle. And as you can see, all the information is there if you want to go and emulate that. So back to page 1. Okay, so we are now ready to roll. Just give the engines a little test. Okay, test the surfaces. And now release parking brake. Just going to accelerate a little bit and test the brakes. Yep, they work. Right, so we're going to taxi to the end of runway 29. Obviously using the screen in front of us as we have no front field of view. Now, just a word of warning, try not to exceed 25 knots ground speed, otherwise you will find it difficult to turn. And we're going to stop here and just take a quick look out the windows, make sure there's nothing around us, and make one last check of the instruments, make sure they're all good, which they are. Fuel cell and battery temperatures are good. Okay. And out we go. And we're going to stop up here by the piano keys. Then I'll throttle up, engage the afterburner, and then once we hit 180 knots true airspeed, I will pull nose up, gear up, and get into a 10 degrees nose up climb. Brakes off. Okay, 180 knots, rotate, gear up, and then it into a 10 degrees nose up. And then basically what we're going to do is just make sure that the Mach number doesn't exceed 0.98 by pulling up to 20 degrees nose up. Okay, so let it build up a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to start pulling up to 20 degrees to make sure we do not exceed Mach 1, and we will climb to 35,000 feet. If anyone's curious of where we just left, it's the scenery for RAF Machrihanish. Anyone that grew up in the 90s will remember stories about unknown aircraft flying in and out of the base at night, and weird sonic booms, sounds, and donuts on a rope contrail. So yeah, bit dark and mysterious, but I thought it was a bit apt to have the Darkstar fly out of Macrahanish after all of those urban legend type stories. Try and maintain 20 degrees nose up, try not to let it drift up, trim if you can, not far from 35,000 feet. Once we hit 35,000 feet, we're going to roll inverted, pull a 1G pullover, as I guess it would be called, to 20 degrees nose down, and this is where we're going to start our supersonic run up, basically. And we'll go for inverted and let it settle. Pull 1G, or as close to 1G as you possibly can, and get it over to 20 degrees nose down, and then roll back over. Now this is the most meticulous part. We now need to pull between 1.2 and 1.3 G pullback on the stick, and it's indicated here. So just keep an eye on this area, so you don't want to pull too much G, otherwise you can cause the aircraft to not accelerate how you'd want it, or even overstress. And this is why I went up to 35,000 feet. In the tutorial or challenge, you can go up to 30,000 feet. For me, that's just a bit too low. Depending on how much G you're pulling in this build up. As we come level with the horizon, you'll need to pull back on the stick a little bit more. Obviously, gravity is going to be fighting the aircraft, so yeah, just pull back a little bit more, maintain the 1.2 to 1.3 G pull up, and once we get to 10 degrees nose up, we'll settle the aircraft down and then get ready to transition into hypersonic. And also remember just to keep an eye on the Mach indicator at the top. Make sure that we're climbing nicely. Once we pass Mach 2, it's pretty much easy sailing. Okay, let's switch on the lower and upper beacons. Switch on the fuel cell and flip up the guard for the scramjet switch. Now I'm going to throttle back all the way to idle, engage the scramjet, and then throttle all the way up to military power again. Throttling back, switch on. Scramjet's online, throttling back up. Let the aircraft settle for a bit. Then when we reach, when the Mach number won't climb anymore, we'll ignite the afterburner. Okay, we're hitting resistance. An afterburner on in 3, 2, 1, now. Conventional engines are now shutting down, and now it's hypersonic all the way. As you can see, the Mach number's climbing quite nicely, so is the altitude. The recommended altitude is 120,000 feet, but I've got this thing up to 250,000 feet, ridiculous as it sounds. So operating altitude is whatever you feel, I guess. Everything's short of orbit, I suppose. So yep, still climbing. Now, I have encountered issues when I've hit Mach 9, so I tend not to push it that far. I do actually want to land the thing. I don't want to end up overstressing the aircraft. So we hit about 8.91, and then I'll start to gently nose over, get the aircraft level. The Mach number will start to drop as air resistance will take its toll on the airframe, and as we're not climbing upwards and the air getting thinner, we are just regulating the altitude. But yeah, that's cold start to hypersonic. So I hope that's helped. It's a lot of fun. Has its limits as well, so be careful. But as always, take care, and I will see you in the next one.